Today we'll be working on a 1995 Honda Civic DX. This one has the 1.5 liter engine and it's due for a timing belt and water pump. The reason I know that it's due for a timing belt and water pump is that as you look down in there, I've wiped most of it away, but you can still see little traces of green that are non-laser all through here. This is the water pump right here, and it's got a weep hole that comes up this direction and another one that goes out that direction. It'll leak off the back side of the motor. The way to do this one, I'm going to kind of do a step-by-step but all in one sweep without editing, if that's possible. The first thing I like to do with these is drain the antifreeze. In order to drain the antifreeze, you'll want to go underneath the car, and there's a little drain cock about in the middle of the radiator. The radiator only occupies the passenger side of the vehicle, and you can see this little black tab here. There's the tab and the spout, and that's how you drain the radiator. You can see there's a little opening, this little bezel where the antifreeze can drain from below. While we're down here, we're just going to go over timing marks real quick. The timing mark on the bottom is actually the woodruff keyhole. You can see that little opening right here, and then there's a little thing that sticks out behind it. It should be pointing to that. That's not the best timing mark, but it's pretty easy to see even at great distance. So the main one that you need to line up is the cam, because you could be on the exhaust stroke or the ignition stroke or compression, whatever you want to call it. So what really counts is on here I wrote up so that you can see it in yellow pen. I also did yellow marks out the sides. These marks here line up with the top of the cylinder head here. And so you kind of have to trace around here to be able to detect that. There's also a timing mark right here that corresponds with the inner timing cover. So with this in the up position, you'll know that you're in the right stroke. So this will line up, or it'll be upside down if you're in the wrong position, but the crank one will still line up because the crank turns 2 times. This is the crank down here. We're just there for every once this rotates. Okay, so we did the first step, which was drain the coolant, because you're going to be replacing the water pump at the same time as your timing belt. And then the other thing you want to do is take off the little ground strap that goes onto this bolt right here. You'll have 4 nuts, as you see here, and then 4 grommets to pull out of the top of your valve cover. I usually pull those off first because they're all quick 10mm ones. So I'll set up my butterfly gun that you see here with a 10mm on a 3-inch extension. I'll just go zip, 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 zip. I'll set the nuts aside in my magnetic dish along with the little grommets so they don't fall out. I'll take my ground wire that would be there, set it aside, and then the next thing I'll do is I'll take each of my spark plug wires. You can see the wires that are laid over here. I see I leave them in the loom, and I just kind of fold it over just like the hinge on a door. It saves a lot of time. But I'll take each of these 4 spark plug wires, you go twist, 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 pull, twist, 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 pull, and so on and so forth. And then there's a little bracket about right here on the valve cover, which is now upside down so you can't see it. But I'll take those wires off of there and I'll flop them over, and then I'll leave these ones intact. And then I'll take a small pry bar and I'll stick the pry bar in between the valve cover and the cylinder head, and I'll twist it just a little bit just to get it to burp. Tupperware, still fresh. So anyway, you burp that, you peel it up and pull it out of the way. But before you can do that, I missed a step. Your PCV hose, PCV, positive crankcase ventilation hose, you take that off. The way I like to do those, going to the tool cart without making people sick, you go to your 90-degree pliers like these, and you just what I'll like to do is I'll pinch the little clamp with the 90-degree pliers so it would be fastened on here. See all that control you get with that? But you just pinch these and then wiggle it back, and then you take those same pliers, twist the hose, and then push it back. If you have to get behind it like a Chinese finger trap, you can push it that way and it'll come off. Once you've done that, you got your valve cover out of the way. Why do we pull the valve cover if we're doing the timing belt? I'm glad you asked. That's a really good question. What you'll need to do is pull that out, because your timing cover for the upper portion is actually pinned in there. It's actually held in by the timing cover. See how there's a little slot like a rail, a little thing that sticks up? So you have to take that off so that you can get this off. This cover, you'll recognize here in just a minute, goes right here over the timing belt. And so when you get the valve cover out of the way, then you can pull this out. This is only held in by 2 bolts. It's hard to get out because these bolts often seize for whatever reason. There's a failure of coating properly. And even after you get those 2 10mm bolts out, they're M6x1, but the head's a 10. So even though you get those bolts out, the cover won't want to come off, because this little thing, this is a little fail-safe, redirect dirt and crud out if it gets in there, will be underneath the belt right there. So it's tucked up underneath, so you go to pull it up and it gets stuck between the cam and the belt. So you'll have to pull this back and then up to get it out of the way. So then you'll set that aside. The next thing you'll want to do is, or what I like to do, is pull, or maybe even before that, it doesn't matter what order you do these, but you pull the reservoir for the power steering. It's in a little bracket that you can see right here. See the little plastic right here, how it corresponds with this right there. So you pull that up and then pull the little wing nut out of the top here. Going to the back where I store these, you've got this little wing nut that pulls the tension to the belt, and then you've got 2 12mm bolts, M8x1.5, but it's 12 for the socket. But this will be down in here like this, and you'll see these little slots. Did my laser just quit? There we go. So you got this slot here and this slot down there. So you got the 12mm bolts in each of those, and you can pull the cover out before doing this if you know to pull that little thing out of the way. But if you don't, it can be a real struggle to, because I flex them, I make them bend a little bit as I pull them out. But you can pull this out first, and then once you have that up and out of the way, then it's a lot easier for some people. If you're a beginner, you might want to pull the power steering pump first. So when you pull the reservoir, it just sits up like this. If you have this pointing down, it's going to spill everywhere, so just make sure that you have it at rest. I like to set the power steering pump on top of the bracket. So that gets your belt off. This is the first belt that comes off from the harmonic balancer that lives down here, the drive pulley that you see here. There's 3 belts, and the way that the belts go is you have the power steering on this groove, you have the air conditioning on this one, and then the alternator is the last one to come off at the bottom. So we got the power steering pump out of the way, we got the top cover off, we need to do the motor mount. Now the motor mount's a little tricky on this one, because the way that this mounts to the engine, you got 2 14mm bolts that hold it onto the engine block to give support on the inside, and you can't get that off till you get the bottom cover. What you can do once you get the power steering pump off, though, is get the bolt that's in the front of it. See the bolt that goes through here? As you look from the front, see if I can get a good shot of it. There you go. In the center of the frame, you see that bolt hole. That's a 14mm, so I usually pull that one about the same time I do the power steering pump. And I'll also support the motor from underneath, and then I can pull these top 2. There's this one here and this one here that correspond with the motor mount that goes in here. So there's a 17mm bolt that goes right here, and then there's one that goes here and one that goes here. So you just, I use an air ratchet, a 90-degree angle one. You probably know what an air ratchet is. It's on the floor over there. So I'll use that for the side one, and then I usually use an impact and a deep socket for the 2 that are on the top here and here. One pulls out as a stud in this case, and then the other is a nut, but it should just be nuts. That's just nuts. Nuts, nuts, nuts. So anyway, so we pull the motor mount out and get it out of the way, and that gives us access for the bottom cover, but not so fast, you say. There's a pulley that's in the way down in here. When you look at this little bracket piece here and this one here, there's 2 12mm bolts that hold the tensioner for the air conditioning belt. The belt that goes here, it's the second one to come off. There's a 14mm nut in the middle of it, You can see the nuts right here, and then there's a little washer that goes on the outside, and then a big spacer that goes on the back side. So as you pull, I just take it all the way off. You don't have to. You can loosen it and then move it up and down on the slide. This is the bracket that I'm talking about. There's two 12mm bolts that go on here, and you can slide them to get out of the way, but I just like to get it off completely. If you forget how it goes, you go smooth side to the engine, and it goes onto this little grommet. What do you call these? Dowel? Grommet? Whatever it is. And just piles up like that. I like to stack mine so that it's all ready to go, like a, you know, ready to load kind of an item. But if you loosen that nut that's 14mm, then you have access to the little tensioner. It's a little tricky. It's a 10mm, and it's usually best to do those after you pull the top cover, because that way it doesn't pull your socket off. When it's down in there, it's tucked in behind this little bracket, so your 10mm socket's going to be going down through here, and when you pull that up, if the plastic's in there, it won't come back out. So anyway, you pull that little bracket, you pull the idler pulley. That allows you to get the belt out. If you're going to be doing just the belt, you don't have to worry about this next one, but if you're doing the pump too, this being the water pump, there's a bracket that goes right here. It bolts onto this part of the, it goes from, how do you want to say this? It basically pins your water pump in. So you got to pull the bolt there, and then also the bolt here. You don't necessarily have to loosen the 14mm bolt at the bottom. You can if you want. What I do is I grab a hold of the belt on the alternator once these two are gone, and I lay this behind here, the bracket for the alternator top slide. You see the little slide part. So grab hold of the belt with the harmonic balancer and everything still on, reach in here and just pull up, and that gives you tremendous force and pressure to be able to pull the alternator in. It loosens the belt, and then you're free to take off your harmonic balancer. Your harmonic balancer is this drive pulley. In order to get that off, it's just a 17mm nut. Now this doesn't have as big of a washer or as big of a surface area as some of the Accords do. These usually come off pretty easy with an impact gun. You can use a breaker bar and a socket and brace it against the ground and hit the starter motor, and that'll crack them free. Or you can use a torch, an oxyacetylene torch, you know, with the red and green hose, and heat up just one little spot on the washer, and then once that's heated up, it'll come off easy with an impact gun. So you pull that off, and then you've just got your lower cover. You want to see the most pathetic lower cover you've ever seen? This car is going for the 300,000 mile club. It's about there. But this is your lower cover, and there's one, each of these are 10mm. There's 4 total to hold this on. There's 2 in the bottom that are hiding behind the harmonic balancer. There's one just a little up and left that you get from the bottom, and then there's another one from the top. And then once you pull those out, you can pull the cover off, no problem. Once you've got the cover off, it shows you, you're able to see the timing marks for the crank, but we don't really care about those. Those line up automatically unless you had a timing belt failure, but mostly you just line up with this mark here, and I just go for this one here because it's real easy to see. There's a little line that's cast into the thing here, just like these ones are on the sides, and then there's a little triangle that sticks up there. So that's the easy way to line it up. Double check your marks at the bottom, because once the belt's off, it's a free-for-all. And so we're caught up to about where we're at. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 14mm gear wrench. I use these all over the place. These are awesome. They're expensive as can be. It's like $100 for a set. But when you're doing the bottom 12mm one down here on the power steering pump, these make all the difference in the world. Same thing when you go to get this one off, because your air ratchet doesn't reach in there. And using a regular wrench is difficult because you have to set it on, crank it, pull it off, set it on, crank it. This, you just go wow, 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 wow. You can just spaz out on it and pull them really quick. So anyway, the next thing we'll do, there's a spring. You can't really see it real well, but there's a spring that goes to the tensioner down in there. And you can see that this is a slotted pulley. So what I'll do is I'll take a pry bar from the tool cart. Sound effects. Haha. I'll take a pry bar, I'll put it where the spring meets the little bracket right there, and I'll loosen this bolt right here, and then while it's loosened I push this down, and then I'm holding this pry bar with my left hand, and then I use the same ratcheting wrench, flip it over, tighten down the bolt, and it actually holds this pulley down out of the way and it's ready to go. So with that being in the loosened position, you peel the belt off from here first, and then from the water pump, and then it'll just fall off everywhere else as there won't be any tension left. When you go to do the water pump, you take the belt off first, and then you've just got 4 bolts. You got 1, 2, 3, and then there's another one under here that I like to get from the bottom. You can use a little extension like a wobble, 3" 3/8, not 3", just 1 inch, and a 10mm socket, and that little combination will get it from the top if you're in a hurry. That's why we drained the antifreeze earlier. You're going to spill some more once this comes off, so you'll want to take your little dedicated antifreeze drain pan that you see here and get it in position so that you can drain in there. What I do is I'll have this side supported by the jack, the other side's by jack stand, so it's safe, so it'll tip but basically won't move anywhere. I'll lower my jack after the pump's out on this side and get this side to tip down, and that'll spill the antifreeze out of there, and then I'll jack it back up so I don't have fresh spilling. And the reason why I do that is I like the surfaces where it seals all the way around the water pump to be very clean. I like to get it as close to factory clean finish as I can, and that way the gaskets stick better. They seal better. If you have any crud or debris or anything, it can create a leak. So anyway, that's how you do it. And then of course the installation is reverse of the install. One thing I'll say is when you go to put the timing belt on, I like to use these little clips. Let's see, where did I put them? I need some new drawers, at least some new bearings for this new one. This Blue Point cart's just falling apart. I think they use like the 50-pound or 70-pound roller bearing slides on these instead of the 100-pound. I need the 100. I need a new cart. That's what I need. So these are your office supply paper clip things. I like to use these on the camshaft because you put the belt on here first, and then once your belt's on here, then you run it down to the crank drive pulley and run it so that there's about that much tension. And what I'll do is I'll oftentimes take this and I'll rotate it with these same 90-degree pliers. You can take the pliers and stick them in the pulley like this. If you have 2 hands, it's so easy. Anyway, I'll rotate this slightly counterclockwise and then line it up on the pulley down there. And then with these clipped in place, I'll take this back, back onto time. And then you want to go from there around your idler, and then or actually you want to do your water pump first. I'm sorry. This goes on last because all the slack, all the stuff at the end should all be collected here. And then all you got to do with your slack there is loosen this bolt with your ratcheting box wrench, and that spring, remember the spring that I showed you earlier, that's just going to pull that and pull all the slack right out. I usually give mine an extra little tug just to make sure that all the slack is located there, and then just let it relax and then tighten that bolt, and the spring will have it about where you need to be. And once it's all on, you pull off your clips, put on your lower cover, put on your upper cover, and then do your motor mount and then your pulley. Don't forget when you go to put this together, a good rookie mistake, I always put this little, this basically holds the timing belt on. This is a little bump stop that keeps the belt as it's rotating. It keeps it up against the little pulley, the drive pulley at the base. What people will do is they'll put the lower cover on, they'll forget this, and then they'll put this on. It doesn't work. This has to go on first, and then the lower cover, and then this is held against that pulley when you put the crank drive harmonic balancer on. So that's just something to bear in mind. Don't forget to put this on before the lower cover. That'll save you a little headache and grief. The practice is nice, but sometimes you just want to get the job done, right? Right. So you put the covers on, you put your motor mounts on, remount your power steering pump, put all your belts on. Don't forget to put your belts on in order. This alternator one goes first. Man, that doesn't show up very good. No wonder I haven't been using the red laser. The red laser sucks. I got this crazy powerful green one, and it's pretty good. You get a little flash now and then. Anyway, you do the alternator pulley first because it goes on first, and then you get this one. You put your little bracket and your tensioner thing back on, and then you do your power steering pump, put the belt back on, and then last but not least you do your valve cover. When you do your valve cover, you should use a little bit of silicone in these little corners here and here, here and here. I also do these. I put a little silicone around there. I use Permatex Right Stuff. Black silicone dissolves in oil, so you see black, but that's Permatex Right Stuff. That doesn't dissolve in oil. And then just hook everything back up, ground wire back on, and you're done. So let me turn the flashlight off here. I actually taped a flashlight to the camera mount for this one. It actually helps me to hold the camera still because it's a little heavier. It's little flip cameras that I use. I use the Flip Ultra Mini or whatever, Minnow. But they're so light, it's really easy to shake and it makes everybody sick. But I'm like, I just want to take the information, put it on the internet, get people hooked up. But anyway, if you like this video, you want to see more like it, click subscribe, click the like button. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Look in the comments, you might be able to find your answer faster that way. I don't do personal messages because if I have a question on a video, it's because I screwed up usually. I wasn't thorough, and everybody has the same question. I try to put it in annotations if I can catch it, but man, I'll tell you what, when I mess up, I know because my personal messages will get full of like 7 of the same question. I'm just like, But if you do it in the comments, people can get to that. Other people can't access my personal messages. So anyway, thanks for watching my video. I really appreciate having you along, and wish you all the best of luck getting your Honda Civic timing belt done and water pump. Cheers. Thanks for watching.